Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I am Estelle, and why don't you subscribe to the channel and like the video even before watching. To the OGs, thank you so much for your unwavering support. I really appreciate you all. And to those of you who have decided to join the family, thank you and you're welcome. So on today's video, we are about to delve into a topic that affects millions of immigrants, especially those of African descent. If this is something you're interested in, why don't you stick and stay, and let's dive right into it. So today we are talking about the complexities of property ownership, inheritance, and the challenges immigrants face when managing assets both in their home countries and in the diaspora or in abroad. So we would explore what happens to an African immigrant, or what an immigrant passes through when he or she passes on without a will or a next of kin. And also we would explore whether immigrants should own properties abroad or rather own properties back home. I am led to make this video because I saw an article or a write-up that says that the governments of foreign countries, or maybe let's say the United States or Europe, takes over or repossesses the properties of immigrants who die without wills or next of kin. So in many developed countries such as the United States, Europe, Canada, and all those developed countries, when an immigrant dies without proper documentation on their property, such as a will or a next of kin, the government steps in and manages the estate. This is called intestate succession. So the government decides who inherits the property based on the laws of inheritance. And this can be a very long process. If the person was in debt before he or she passes, the asset could be sold to pay off debts, and the remaining amount or whatever left would now be given to family members or relatives. That's if they are found. So one may ask, why would an immigrant not have a will or a next of kin? Why would you wait and leave your properties hanging and die and you don't know what happens to your property? First of all, the first point is cultural factors. In most African cultures, there is no strong tradition to write wills. Instead, property is handed down informally through family or community systems. And that kind of inheritance also has its pros and cons, especially the cons where the family members start fighting after the demise of the individual. So because of such a tradition, people are used to that. So when they travel abroad, they do not even have it at the back of their mind to write wills or put maybe next of kin on their documents. Most immigrants have uncertainties about the legal systems in the countries where they reside. Most immigrants may not be aware of the complexities of the legal systems, including the importance of creating a will or identifying a next of kin. There's also the issue of financial and logistical challenges. When most immigrants migrate, come to a new country, they might be so focused on settling in and adjusting to the new life that they forget to write wills or place or identify next of kin on their documents. So when this happens, they might not see the immediate need to write a will because they are busy hustling, adjusting, adapting to their new environment. So they think this is for the future, this is distant, let me just wait and adjust, and that's how they end up forgetting to do this. The next reason why people might die without wills or next of kin is emotional barriers or challenges. For some, the idea of death is so emotional, so they would not want to plan anything that revolves around death, the topic of death. For some people, the idea of death and planning for it can be really emotionally draining and disturbing, especially when they are very far from home and from their loved ones. And the distance from family and their loved ones can even make it more difficult to even identify a next of kin or write a will. That's just how some people see it. I think people think to themselves, they are not even here anyway, so why should I bother? And these are the reasons why people die and leave their estates or properties, and the government repossesses these properties. Now, the question being asked is, should immigrants invest in properties in the diaspora or should invest in properties back home? These are all great means of investment, but they all have their pros and cons. Many immigrants believe that investing in property in the diaspora, that's their current countries they are living in, they see that as a safer option to investment. Owning property in the diaspora allows the immigrant to build wealth and possibly secure their financial future, especially if they are planning on staying long term. There's also stability and a safe legal framework of owning a property if you're owning or buying property in the diaspora where you live. There's also the potential to build equity and secure financial independence. If you own property in the diaspora and you place your next of kin, or you identify your next of kin, or make your will, you be rest assured that your property would be passed on to the next generation. So in these terms, looking at these advantages, it is beneficial to invest in property in the diaspora where you live. The risks towards investing back home are also many. The very first point is you are likely to be scammed. So there are individuals who trust other individuals with money to secure a land and construct buildings for them or start a building project for them. And those people back home would take the money and would go onto other people's sites, take photos and send to the immigrants that this is your project, we are working on your project. They would steadily be giving updates. Meanwhile, they are not actually, the property is not for the immigrants. They are not doing any work. They just go to take photos of other people's projects and send to the immigrants. This is something very common that happens to immigrants. I've seen countless number of videos where people travel back home. Some of them even wait to the extent that they relocate from the diaspora or from abroad back home, and there's nothing to go back to. The house or houses or whatever they thought they were building all this while do not exist. So that's one of the major challenges owning property back home. And then there's also the issue of the caretaker problem. People own properties back home, and because there's no one to take care of it, they find people who are caretakers. They are supposed to take care of the house, to occupy the house so that it's not empty. Okay, some of these caretakers are so dubious that they try to use dubious means to get rid of the owners of the property, the immigrants, and take charge or possess the house or the property. There've been countless cases where people do that. Also, some of these caretakers live in these properties and make use of utilities. Let's say they make use of electricity, they make use of water and everything, and they expect the immigrants to be paying their bills. So the immigrant is abroad or in the diaspora paying huge sums of money towards bills, and at the end of every month would have to send back money home for the bills of his property or his house to be catered for, which does not make sense. There's also the issue of family members fighting over the property. Here's the case that you've not even given the property to them, or you've not given them the go-ahead to occupy it, but they start fighting over it. And some family members can also go to the extent of doing things to get rid of the immigrants just so they could possess the house or the property. So it's a whole lot. So there are many schools of thought on property ownership and wills when it comes to owning property back home or owning property in the diaspora. The very first school of thought says, well, own property in the diaspora, it is safer, plus all the reasons that I stated earlier, and you are occupying it at the moment. So one thing you should do is, if you own it, make sure you've identified your next of kin and you've written your will. So in case of anything, your property is safe. It goes back to maybe your family or your children, and the state does not repossess the property. Yes, so one school of thought says that it is safer for the immigrant to own properties where they reside, since these properties are protected by the law, and in case of their demise, the properties are well taken care of, or they are given to those that it's supposed to be given to. This also avoids the issue of family members fighting over the property, because the thing is, they do not even know it exists. So how are they going to fight over it? Unless maybe there's a next of kin which identifies, oh, this property goes to this person. The family members are not even going to know to even fight over it. Are they going to travel from whichever African country to where you are to fight over your property? So yeah, that's one school of thought. Another school of thought also says it is better to invest in property back home, but with caution. They say it is safer if you find a trustworthy person and you work with that person to acquire property back home. But if you are going this route, you need clear documentation, legal contracts, and reliable estate management practices to avoid exploitation. If not, you go back to nothing. The third school of thought says immigrants should be flexible. This is a more conservative school of thought. It says immigrants should rent. They should rent in the diaspora. They should rent back home. So the argument is that renting offers flexibility, especially for those who are uncertain about their long-term plans in the diaspora, and also for those worried about property disputes back home. Renting also avoids the headache that comes with property management and offers freedom from the responsibilities that come with property ownership, especially here in the diaspora where you need to be paying taxes. What is it called? Property tax. Yes, property tax. I think back home there's nothing like property tax. Once you are able to get your land and register and build, there's nothing like that. But here in the abroad there's property tax. So this school of thought is saying that once you rent, you are not liable to these taxes and the management and responsibility that comes with managing your property. Today the roof is off, you need to fix it. Tomorrow State Farm is writing a letter that maybe your garage roof or window is rotten, so you need to pay. If not, they are going to take you off insurance. So what is this video trying to say? This video is just trying to caution immigrants that it is very, very important to write a will, irrespective of how soon you entered into a country, how old you are. Some people have the mentality that it's only those that are grown-ups in their 50s or 60s that should write a will. No, that is not true. Once you are working, you should write a will and have a nest of kin. If you're owning properties in the diaspora, have a nest of kin and write a will. Do not wait till you're starting to have your grandchildren before you think of writing a will. So in conclusion, the challenges of owning a property, managing assets, and inheritance as an immigrant can be really overwhelming. So whether you choose to own assets in the diaspora or back home, having a clear will, nest of kin, and a solid plan for managing your property or your assets is very essential. This is a complex, it can be a complex process, but with proper planning and legal advice, you can protect your assets and legacy for the future. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you find this video useful, informative, or educative, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I will see you guys in the next video. If you have any more ideas on what you want to know about, tell me in the comments below, and I'll be more than glad to make a video on that for you guys. I will see you in our next video. Until next time, guys, bye.